Hello and welcome to another episode of Talking Beer with Chicago Bill. We're here at the 2007 Annual Beer Institute meeting, and my guest is Gary Fish from Deschutes Brewery.
Deschutes Brewery, Bend, Oregon. That's right.
Seems like there seems to be a theme here. There's a lot of brewers from Oregon, which I'm from the Midwest myself, and you usually can't go wrong when you pick an Oregon brewery. You guys make some great beer out there.
Well, Oregon has really distinguished itself as certainly we have the highest market share for craft beer in the country by a significant margin, and there are some terrific brewers there. They're also, this trend is really all about the consumer, and there are some terrific, adventurous consumers there that have helped drive this trend really from the very start.
Mm-hmm. You get that. I mean, I guess that West, you're at Coast, but West Coast attitude of trying new things, and I'm just glad as a Midwesterner that it's coming. It's spreading, because I know the boom kind of started out west, and now I'm glad just being a Midwesterner that I can drive, and almost every town I go to, there's a microbrew for me to stop and try their beer. So
I lived in Utah for a while, and the adage then was that trends start on the coasts and work their way towards the middle. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you, in the Midwest, there are some terrific brewers making some really wonderful beers right now as well. So, the Midwest has nothing to be ashamed of as far as the beer that's being produced there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have little excursions. Unfortunately, my children and my wife have probably been on like 10 brewery tours because we got to stop here. So.
Only 10?
I'll sneak away and go on my own.
All right.
You kind of talked about consumer trends. What consumer trends influence the beer industry?
Well, for me, I think the consumer trends are not just influencing the beer industry, they're influencing all the consumer goods categories. And as we were talking about earlier, all you have to do is walk through your local grocery store and think back a little while ago and, how large was the organic produce section 10 years ago and how large is it today? Mm-hmm. How large was the wine section 10 years ago and how large is it today? Artisanal cheeses, ethnic foods, specialty products of just about every category are now being sourced locally, regionally, and so forth. And it's the consumer that's driving that. It's not the suppliers. The consumer is looking for, I think, a much more individualized experience. They want something that they can kind of call their own, that they can experiment with. People are eating out more often and they're cooking in more often. It is something that is, that's driving people to seek more interesting and creative experiences when they consume things.
Mm-hmm. Now you mentioned organic. Now, your beers are brewed, it's all organic.
No, our beers are not organic. Oh, no. We're actually working on that. Unfortunately, the supply of organic materials is still coming of age. Mm-hmm. Organic hops is probably the hardest thing to get produced well because of some of the specific afflictions, aphids, powdery mildews, and those kinds of mm-hmm. things that really are stressful on hops. And most of the organic certifications allow for a certain percentage that is non-organic at this stage. Where those certifications go in the future is anyone's guess, but we're working right now on creating a beer that will be 100% organic, and hopefully will be introduced in the coming year. Mm-hmm. So,
because like you said, there's not only sections, there's whole stores. Obviously, they're just everything they sell is organic. I know in the Midwest we have a lot of them.
Yeah, Whole Foods and Wild Oats and those kinds of chains have really added focus to this, and I think it's not just added credibility to the category, but has provided the incentive that suppliers need to be able to produce the raw materials that we can make the end product with, and I think that's really, really attractive for us as a company and ultimately for the consumer.
Mm-hmm. Now, one thing I read, when is your Sagebrook Classic? When does that
The Sagebrook Classic is, we've held it the third weekend in July every year. We held it this year. We had 19 chefs from around the world came in and prepared food. We paired them up with specialty beers and all that on top of a golf tournament that happens the day before. This year, I think we raised about $175,000 for local charities, and it's really a wonderful event. It's a lot of of fun. It's the best party of the year. If you or any of your listeners are ever in Central Oregon in the middle of July, you might want to think about scheduling your trip around this because it is a wonderful event.
Well, I was trying to get an invite, so that's why I asked about it.
You are invited. I think I just did that.
You did. Another question. Have you ever thought about calling it, obviously I've read you have many different beers that you make. Have you ever thought about calling one the 11th batch?
The 11th batch? No. Is there a
from what I read, what I read in my research is that when you first started, you did 10 batches of beer, and each one of them went bad, so to speak. So I just thought that would be a creative name is call one the 11th one that's perfect for the 11th batch.
That was those were interesting times. Anybody that's ever started a business knows that there is a period of time when you question everything you have ever done with regard to that business, and we had a period of time. I had a wonderfully talented brewer, John Harris, who is a brewer for Full Sail now, and wonderfully talented guy. But we had a glitch in the setup of the system that attracted bacteria, and we made a commitment when we first started the business. We'll never sell bad beer, and we had 10 batches in a row that we couldn't sell, and we got people coming in the door and no beer to sell them. It's a really, really tough time in the beginning of any business. But those are the times. They always told me that I would look back on those days and laugh one day, and I've been able to look back and smile. I've yet to be able to actually laugh about it.
So I probably should have asked you that before I brought it up.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I didn't make the connection when you first raised it. But those are wonderful stories to tell, because people look at us now and think, it's a successful business and it was easy, and God, they really kind of did everything just right, and we didn't. We made plenty of mistakes, and we have been like most startups, and it has really been a roller coaster. I keep telling our people the road to progress is not a straight line. It is. It weaves all over the place sometimes, and we have to keep that in mind and just be smart, work hard, and trust that things will come around.
I'm sure they will.
So,
one more quick question: if you were on a desert island and every beer in the world was on that island except for your beer, what would you drink?
This is a question I'm sure you're asking everyone else that sits in this chair.
No comment.
I would probably drink the one that was available. I really am not. We were talking about that earlier. Because of where we are and the fact that we don't sell beer here in Virginia, there was an issue of getting our beer to the conference, and we weren't able to send beer. And that's really okay, because I get to drink everybody else's beer with a clear conscience. And there are wonderful beers here, wonderful brewers, including our host at Anheuser-Busch.
Yep.
So, beer is good, period. And we don't need to be so discriminating that we lose sight of that particular fact.
I think I'm going to write that down as my motto. Beer is good. Well, Gary, thank you very much for joining us today on Talking Beer.
Thank you very much for having me.
Good job. Thank you very much, Gary.